Well, hello then, and do hope you're all well. Now, is this the best, powerful sigh that really speaks volumes when asked a question? It's hilarious. Now, in this final video of the live stream that I did on Tuesday, I'll leave a link somewhere, Lord Hain asked the witnesses, have the EU been flexible with the negotiations on the Northern Ireland Protocol? And they would give him their answers, what they thought, and not. Then he asked a question to Michael Hanley, Chief Executive Lakeland Dairies, and his reaction was very telling.
Nice to see you all, and thank you. Do you think the EU is being sufficiently flexible in its overall approach to the protocol? And in particular, how do you feel about its stance on the bill?
I suppose the fact that we are where we are would suggest that nobody's being sufficiently flexible. We've got a bill brought forward by one side to resolve a problem that should have been resolved through negotiation if the thing had been working properly. In addressing the problems, I suppose I would go upstream of that and say, has there been enough work done to recognise and understand the problems first before then addressing them? So I think that no, it's unfortunate that all sides seem to have sort of stuck and dug in a bit and tried to defend ground that they've landed on probably too quickly, as Peter said about some of the stuff that's being done in the last hours before the protocol came into operation. Really, this process has been fast. People have then held that ground, and I don't think that that's been particularly helpful in actually trying to map, understand, and then bring proper resolution to the problems on all sides.
In a failure of negotiation, isn't there?
Yes.
Michael?
Well, look at, I suppose from a Lakeland perspective, we certainly would share the view and the statement from the Northern Ireland Brexit Working Group. We think that the only solution is a negotiated outcome, working to find an agreement based on compromise. So we'd be encouraging everybody to get to discussions and get around the table and improve. If there's improvement there, improve what the protocol has already done. But from a Lakeland perspective, the protocol is working quite well for us, so we'd have sort of no complaints in there at this moment in time.
Why do you think there haven't been the proper negotiations, Michael?
Look, there was a. There's been discussions.
Oh, sorry about saying about that. That just said it all, didn't it?
Been ongoing for what, 4.5 years, and this, and there's certainly I can see on the retail side of things. I said that there's retail side of things that where product finishes up in Northern Ireland from a retail perspective. The intended consequence there of the new protocol bill would be a big help in there. Just the danger of the unintended consequences of that. So, it'll be important, I think, that discussions. So we'd encourage everybody to get around the table and discuss, and hopefully compromise can be agreed that makes sense, but that doesn't jeopardise the strong dairy industry and the primary processing that we have in Northern Ireland.
Peter?
A political question for a logistics person, so one that would be nice to duck, but I won't. Whenever the EU's position is that the same border controls are in place in Dublin as in Paris, in defending the single market from any goods coming in from outside the market, it always creates a problem whenever you have a Northern Ireland. The EU's position seems to me very clear, and that is that they have no desire, or seem to have no desire, to have a flexibility at Port of Belfast, Lorna, Warren Point, and we can see that in terms of the at-risk goods, because we see continual notes for guidance on a weekly basis being provided to DAERA for enforcement at the ports. So that position to me is quite clear. How to negotiate that position, and I think that, to be honest, I don't know how the UK government did not see the conflict that this would create for the supply chain. in terms of signing up for full SPS and customs controls.
You mean
in the REC.
in agreeing the original treaty?
Absolutely. Like we went 3 months of there is no border in the REC whenever our trucks were stopped on day one. You know, like we'll have to be really real about this. So we have a SPS and customs control in the REC, and the only thing that's given any mitigation against it has been the free trade agreement, because that full customs and full SPS would have been full customs on top of the SPS would have been an absolute nightmare with tariffs and duties. But to be clear, we're in the air now, and we have to sensibly get this back on the ground again. And I think that the model for that I'm suggesting to anybody I speak to is that if we go away from product and we look at people, we have a common travel area where people travel freely across these islands. It's quite unique in terms of the European settlement. It's quite unique in terms of how the rest of Europe works with passport controls. Surely we can apply the same logic as we apply to the common travel area to goods moving across and between these islands, and surely the flexibility that Europe's already demonstrated there is something the UK should be looking to see if they can grasp for this model. We've already seen pragmatism in terms of the Irish government and the UK government both welcoming no checks on Irish goods travelling between Ireland and Britain. There's a precedence there. It has to be seen as a precedence. Whenever a UK government and an Irish government both welcome exactly the same thing, and that is that these checks are not required because Irish food going to Britain is safe and British food going to Ireland is safe too.
You've all been admirably succinct. Can I just ask you to be even more so? What would happen if the grace period is suddenly ended? There
aren't any grace periods. What we've got is a unilateral standstill by the UK government. The grace period ended as soon as the UK unilaterally extended it. And in my business, whenever we're right down to the rubber on the road, we'll have to be really clear on that. It creates a misconception that with grace, there's infractory proceedings run against that unilateral action. And what we've seen below the grace period or below the standstill is certainly not standstill. We've seen at Port of Belfast, Port of Larne and Port of Warren Point continual increases in terms of controls on British goods moving into Northern Ireland, as exemplified by certification on frozen breads, triangular trading, and one letter wrong on a health cert, resulting in the return of a full consignment of goods, and now a new note for guidance, which is suggesting that if one line is wrong in the health cert, then every product that's potentially on that health cert goes back. And I point out that we haven't even seen that in Port of Dublin yet, but we're seeing it in Port of Belfast first.
I think we're going to have to move on. We're almost running late. But Lord Thomas, the final.
Now that sigh, that just made me chuckle. It just said it all, didn't it? What Pete Summerton said about the government, not seeing this thing coming, just tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it, about this extreme Brexit Tory government. They're just absolute idiots, aren't they? Right, just before I go, just want to tell you, tonight, 7 o'clock, I'll be doing a live stream for the second part of this committee meeting, where they're joined by a couple of legal experts, and what they have to say is very interesting, and I do hope you come and join me, and let's watch it together, eh? Right, I shall leave this all here, and I shall bid you farewell until tonight then, I suppose. So, take care.